As part of We the People, celebrating 250 years, here's This Day in History.
Hey, welcome back. As we continue to celebrate America's 250th birthday, we're sharing our We the People series, including This Day in History. Here's WMTV's chief meteorologist Charlie Shortino with a look at what happened on July 12th.
Hello again. On this day, July 12th, back in 1862, the Medal of Honor was created after President Abraham Lincoln signed a bill into law. The award is given to military members who have distinguished themselves in combat at risk of life beyond the call of duty. The first Army soldiers to receive the award were 6 members of a Union raiding party who penetrated deep into Confederate territory to destroy bridges and railroad tracks between Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia. In 1863, the Medal of Honor was made a permanent military decoration available to all members, including commissioned officers of the U.S. military. That's This Day in History for July 12th. For We the People, I'm Charlie Shortino.